Hello, everyone. Thank you for your participating in the Global Digicon Salon. Today, we would like to ask Bill Fernandez-san to share his memories of Steve Jobs. As you know, it's been 9 years since Steve Jobs died on October 5th, 2011, and this year is the 10th anniversary. Now that the world is being hit by the COVID-19 pandemic, what would he think and do if Steve Jobs is alive? Let's think about that together. At first, we would like to offer a silent prayer for him. Please remember him of the past day. Then, quietly focus on your breathing, because that is the secret of them he loved. Look at the picture in 1984. Jobs put his Macintosh on the Collect the Then poster, lotus position. Jobs, Then, and Macintosh. These three were one. So please, let's do silent prayer for 1 minute. 1分間の黙祷をお願いします。Thank you for your cooperation. In 2011, NHK broadcast a program called Steve Jobs, the Man Who Changed the World. Why was Jobs able to change the world? This is today's main theme. Hi, Bill-san. Please come in. Hi. Thank you.
Hello there.
Thank you.
I understand it's morning in Japan, so minasan ohayou gozaimasu.
Thank you for coming in to Global Digicon Salon. At first, I would like to brief introduce you. Bill Fernandez-san introduced Wozniak to Jobs and joined Apple as the first full-time employee, contributed to the development of Apple I, Apple II, Macintosh, etc. And Bill-san made the chance Jobs discovered the elegance of Japanese culture and applied it to Apple products. I will ask you about this important theme in the DG later.
So, this is the Shinhanga by Hasui Kawase that was his wedding gift, very thoughtful gift. Because I also love Shinhanga.
中高生の時、フェルナンデスさんの家でよく過ごしていたというジョブズ氏。その時のことを母親はよく覚えていました。
He and his friends would go in there and experiment with their electronics.
日本美術を学んだ母親の影響で何枚もの新版画で埋め尽くされていた部屋。この環境がその後のジョブズ氏に影響を与えたといいます。
He liked that a lot. It became very attractive to him. You could see his love of simplicity and elegance throughout his life, like in the products that he developed at Apple.
This is part of NHK News Sport 9. Mr. Jobs, the origin of manufacturing. At first, please tell us about the episodes of you and Jobs in Cupertino Junior High School. It's wrong. Cupertino Junior High School, okay?
Okay.
Right.
Well, we met in junior high school, and we were both kind of shy, both intellectual. neither of us wanted to play the social games we needed to be accepted into any of the groups that young people organize themselves into. So we gravitated towards each other and we became best friends.
Yes. Oh, Don, thank you. I'm now at
Hello, Daniel.
I'm now interviewing Bill-san, and please join later in the panel discussion. That's okay. Please turn off your video and mic off, please. Okay. 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 Yes. Okay. And do you know Jobs when he was in Montaloma Elementary School? And do you know why he transferred from Christendom Middle School to Cupertino Middle School?
No, that was before I met him.
Okay. Jobs was a problem child in Montaloma Elementary School, but he met teacher, Imogen Perry Hill. He turned out to be excellent enough to skip 2 grades. Jobs skipped 1 grade and entered Crittenden Middle School, but he refused to go to school due to bullying. So Jobs transferred to Cupertino Middle School and met you. Okay?
Yes.
And
it's very common in school for young kids in America that if you're very smart, school is very boring.
Yeah.
And it's also true that if you're very smart, the other kids will bully you. They will beat you up.
Yeah.
So he probably suffered from both of those things.
I agree with you. Okay. Then in 1967, the family moved to 2066 Chris Drive, Los Altos for Jobs, a child refusal child. That house where Jobs and you assembled the Apple I in the garage. Please comment about this.
Well, I understand that his parents moved into that city so that he could attend the school where I met him. That's what I've heard. And we became friends and we went over to each other's houses and we would play in each other's backyards and we would eventually do electronics projects in each other's garages. And then when Jobs and Woz were starting Apple, Jobs' father and mother let him use part of their garage for their little company. And it used to be that I would ride my bicycle over to his house to play. But now, after they hired me, I drove my little car over to their house to go to work.
Interesting. Okay. And this point is that Jobs was school refusal problem child, but genius child depending on the teacher. That's the point. Next, in the summer of 1971, you introduced your childhood friend Wozniak to Jobs, a classmate at Homestead High School. Please tell us about the situation at that time. And Wozniak himself described Jobs' first impression like this.
Oh, my first memory was I had designed a computer and was building it in a garage down the street with a friend. And he said, you have to meet this other guy. He went to our high school and his name is Steve Jobs and he understands digital electronics and he also plays pranks at the high school, which I was famous for. So Steve came over and we met on the sidewalk, as I remember, and we just started asking each other, what did you do? What pranks did you do? And I would tell which ones I did. And then he, what have you done with electronics? And he built this and I've designed all these computers and we just hit it off. And then we merged into other topics that young people are into.
Hi. Please, your comments.
Well, I grew up in a small neighborhood where the children were always out in the street playing, and I lived across the street from the Wozniak family. And so I knew Steve Wozniak for many years, but he was 4 years older than me, and he graduated from high school the year before Jobs and I entered the high school. So we never did anything together until my first year of high school when we started doing electronics projects. In the video, he said that he built a computer with a friend in his garage. Well, that was me. The computer he designed, but we built it in my garage one summer. You may have heard in Apple history of the cream soda computer. That was the name that was given to it by a writer who was writing the history of Apple. He called it the cream soda computer because we drank a lot of cream soda during that summer. And so I was doing electronics projects with Woz, and separately I was doing electronics projects with Jobs. And I thought that they would like to meet each other because they were both friends of mine and both interested in the same subject. So one day when Jobs came over to visit, I took him across the street and I saw Woz washing his car out in front of the Wozniak family house, and I introduced them to each other on the sidewalk.
Very interesting. And Jobs belonged to an electric work club in high school. He called the president of Hewlett Packard to get parts and work part-time. What was it like?
Well, we had a great electronics program. We had an electronics lab as one of the classrooms, and we had a great electronics teacher. That picture that you showed had the teacher, John McCullum, on the left. And one of the things he did was he got a number of companies to hire some of his students, well, not hire, but to bring them on as in work study program so that they could do some work at these different companies and learn from being in the real industry. I went to NASA, and Steve Jobs went to Hewlett Packard.
Well, very interesting. On this picture, you don't here?
No, I am not in that.
Okay. And next. In 1971, Jobs and Woz, his first collaboration to produce the telephone free of charge device, Blue Box. They made a prank call to the Pope and sold it to students, etc. And how do you think about this?
Well, Steve Wozniak read an article in Esquire magazine that described how if you made the right tones into your telephone, that you could pretend to be a telephone operator and you could control the route of a telephone call using long distance phone lines around the world. And it turned out that the technical information was all freely available in technical books, and Woz got a copy and read all the technical information. And he designed this little box in his hand with buttons you could push, and he had a little speaker that you could put up to your phone, and it would make the correct tones. And then you could look up in the directory which tones you needed to make to connect different long distance lines. And there was a way to use that to make free long distance phone calls, which was very interesting because in those days, long distance phone calls were very expensive. Calling the other side of the country might cost $1 per minute, or to call another country might cost $10 or $20 a minute. So being able to do that for free was kind of interesting.
Very interesting.
Once he had this created, Jobs said, you know, we could build some of these and sell them to other people. We could sell them for a couple $100s a piece and make some money. So that was their first business venture together.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Well, this Blue Box now on display in the Computer History Museum. You know. Okay. And in 1975, Jobs and Woz premiered the Apple I as the homebrew computer club. Jobs decided to set up a company after receiving an order for 50 units from Byte Shop. April 1st, 1976, Jobs, Woz and Ron Wayne found Apple Computer Company. How did you and Daniel Kotoke-san helped assemble the Apple I in the Jobs garage?
Well, Daniel and I did not overlap very much. I think for the first 50 boards, Jobs bought all the parts, and they had to be separated out into little kits, one for each board. And my understanding is that he hired Daniel Kotke and his sister, Patty Jobs, to separate out all the parts into little kits. And the kits would be sent with the boards to a woman who had set up a company and hired housewives to assemble the Apple I's on their kitchen tables and solder them together. Daniel may be able to correct me if I made any mistakes about that. So that was how the first batch of 50 boards was built. And then after that, they incorporated the company, and they built another batch that they had built a different way. And after incorporating, they needed to hire permanent employees. So I was the first one they hired as a full-time permanent employee. And I went to work in the garage with Jobs. And I'd go out and I'd pick up parts, and I would test boards, and I would build test fixtures and so forth, and any kind of technical assistance they needed while Jobs was trying to be an entrepreneur and get the company running.
Right. And January 3rd, 1977, Jobs, Woz and investor Mike Merkler found Apple Computer Inc. You joined as the first full-time employee. How did you contribute to Apple II?
Well, I think they incorporated in January of 1977, and they hired me in February of 1977. And at that time, the Apple II did not exist. Woz was designing various things. I think after I was hired, he did the cassette interface board and some other things, and then was working on the Apple II. Jobs was trying to get a case designed for it so that it could be attractive and you could just buy it pre-assembled. And I didn't have anything to do with designing that. I continued to do a lot of technical tasks to assist in the engineering and the development and the running of the company.
And you like circuit, don't you?
I liked circuits. Yes.
Yes. You did write the circuit of Apple II, circuit map.
Well, you may be confusing something. Steve Wozniak, when he designed circuitry, like you see that page on the left, he used a kind of shorthand to represent the design. But other people, like technicians who had to troubleshoot it or repair it, or people who had to lay out the printed circuit board to get all the traces, connecting the right parts and so forth, they needed what's called a schematic. And a schematic shows all the parts and all the wires and the pins that they connect to and so forth. So I had to take Woz's little shorthand diagrams and I had to expand that out into a full schematic, showing all the parts and all the wires that connected them, so that everyone else could understand it and do their work.
I think it's very important work.
Oh, it was, because no one else could do what they needed without the schematic. But so,
Thank you. And Wozniak talks about Jobs' genius. This is an excellent aspect of Jobs. How do you think about this?
Well,
I was such a genius in computer design that it just overshadowed anything he would do in the technical realm. He was very fast thinking. He had an idea. He wanted to go here. He wanted to go there. He wanted to go there. he was almost driven with a lot of anxiety and hyperemotion, and but he had great thoughts and he had great thinking. And when we first started Apple, he would often pose very good questions. Why isn't a company organized this way? Why doesn't a certain person do a certain job rather than another person do it? And he was almost always, you couldn't contradict him. He also had this drive to have a role at first. Eventually it would become like power, control, but a role of just having input into every major department and development in the company. I think he's going to be remembered for the categories of products that he took the world towards, the quality of the products that came out of Apple and his other companies, and also that he was an incredible business leader that built a huge company by basically keeping moving in good, solid, well-managed directions.
Hi. How about his comments?
Well, Woz was the engineer and Jobs was the entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Woz was the person with the technical expertise to design a unique and wonderful piece of electronics. And Jobs was the person who said, we can make a product that people will love, and I want to do that. And so he had a lot of hustle. When he started, hustle means that you're always working, always trying to do the next thing, that you're always in motion. And when they started, Jobs didn't know how to run a company. He didn't know how to do shipping or receiving or assembly or testing or anything that you needed to make, or do marketing and so forth. But he said, okay, I need this. I need to learn how to do it. I need to find a person who can do it. So he was always running, trying to put all the pieces together to make a business that would be able to create and sell the electronic product that Woz designed.
Yeah, very interesting. Entrepreneur should be so. Okay.
Yeah.
And he said Jobs always respected him and treated him kindly, but it was different for you and Daniel Kotoke-san. He treated you badly in early Apple. It was his negative perspective.
For me, he always respected me. And even in later years, even if I didn't have a very good answer, he didn't ever treat me like, oh, I was dumb or I didn't know that answer. He was very respectful, very nice and polite to me. So I never hung around enough to see, what some people call, brash behavior or whatever.
How do you think about this?
Well, Woz and Jobs are two of my oldest and best friends.
Yeah.
And I always had a great relationship with each of them.
Mm-hmm.
Jobs was never mean to me or negative to me.
Mm-hmm.
In the early people that they hired, many of them did not get stock in the company. So many of them, when the company went public, did not become wealthy. And there are people who think that that was unfair to the early people. So I didn't get any of that early stock, but I never felt that it was mean. And he was never nasty to me. He was always very nice to me. We always worked very well together.
I see. I'm sorry. Okay.
Woz and Jobs hired me because I was the best they knew for what they needed at that time, a general purpose technical assistant. And Woz has said that, Bill was the best we knew at this specific thing that we need, okay? And they both respected me highly for what I could do and for the person that I was, the person that I am as a friend. Yeah.
Okay. And the next question, in 1979, you quit Apple, came to Japan, and stayed in Sapporo for 2 years. What kind of activities were you doing in Japan?
Basically, I had been studying the martial art of Aikido for many years.
Oh, yeah.
And I decided I wanted to go to Japan and study Aikido. So I did that, and I got my my Shodan, my first degree black belt, while I was there, and learned how to speak Japanese a little bit, and learned a lot about Japanese culture and made friends and so forth. And then I came back to America, and a few years later, got my second degree black belt in Aikido.
Okay. And all these pictures in Japan or not?
No, the one on the left,
Mhm.
I was on TV in the I think in Osaka, Ken,
Oh.
maybe briefly singing a song. I was helping out the Baha'i faith, my religion, and I was making little concerts in kisaten, in
Oh.
coffee shops. And then the one in the middle is the backyard at my house where I grew up.
Oh, really?
And the one on the right was my apato, my apartment in Sapporo-shi.
Yeah. I see. The middle picture is you in your house. I feel
Yes.
this look like a Japanese. I see. Okay. And you returned to Apple in 1981 and worked for Apple until 1994. And you contributed to the UI development of classic Mac OS, QuickTime, and HyperCard. What was it like?
Well, over those years, the environment changed a lot. When I went back to work at Apple, I worked for the Macintosh group. I was maybe the 15th person, 15 person in the Macintosh group. We were a small group working in a little office behind a gas station away from the rest of Apple, like a little pirate band doing something away from the rest of Apple. And then later we moved into a regular Apple building on the Apple campus, and the Macintosh group got bigger. We had hundreds of people. We had marketing and everything. I was sent to Japan to work with Sony on the external disk drive, and it all became very official. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah. So it changed. Yeah.
And you were in the sense UI designer, UX designer, don't you?
That changed over time. I was a member of technical staff, kind of an engineer when I went back. Eventually, it became an electronic engineer. And then I had a chance to work on HyperCard. HyperCard was designed by a friend of mine, Bill Atkinson, and he liked my ideas. So he got Apple to loan me to him to do user interface design for HyperCard. And then after that, I transferred into the user interface department. And then as part of an official user interface designer, I worked on the QuickTime project, which is how we brought video and sound into computers. And it was one of the precursors to being able to make Zoom conferences or the World Wide Web, because you couldn't have sound and video until we added it with QuickTime. And then now we call what I do user experience instead of user interface. So
yes, okay. Okay, the summary of this part: fast-thinking genius, anxiety person, left Apple II personal computer revolution unfinished. One, Apple II, open architecture. Open architecture isn't, I think, is not old. Today's theme, but Apple II was CUI, character user interface. This is old. The next classic Mac, closed architecture, GUI, graphical user interface, is super, but single task. 12 years later, Miraculous came back. And he said, think different. Then we shaped the recovery of Apple on the verge of bankruptcy. Then he became the man who changed the world. Why was Jobs able to change the world? The excellence of Japanese culture and Apple is one of the key.
iPod や iPhone といった革新的な製品を次々に世に送り出してきたアップルの共同創設者スティーブ・ジョブズ氏。 来年で亡くなって10年になります。そのジョブズ氏が熱心に買い集めていたのが新版画と呼ばれる日本の美術品です。そのリストを NHK に入手しました。
ジョブズ氏のものづくりに日本の美術との深い関わりがあったことが見えてきました。
Hello, I am Macintosh. マッキントッシュコンピューター、iMac、そして携帯音楽プレーヤーの iPod、斬新なアイディアとデザインで IT 業界に革命を起こしたスティーブ・ジョブズ氏。2007年に発売された iPhone は小さな端末一つで誰でも簡単に世界中の情報にアクセスできる世界を実現させました。20年前、NHK の番組に出演した際、自らが開発した製品で世界をどう変えていきたいのか、そのビジョンを語っていました。
We see at Apple, one of the things we've always felt is that we want to stand at the intersection of technology and humanities. Can we help you express yourself in richer ways, in your music, in your movies, in your photography, and these kinds of things that people want to do?
Jobs said, we understand the intersection of technology and humanity. Can you help you express yourself in richer way? In your music, in your movies, in your photography, those things people want to do. How do you think about this? Your comment, please.
Well, Apple has always been about empowering people to do what was important to them, empowering them using electronic products. So, for example, we weren't making medicines, and we weren't making new hybrid flowers or grains for growing food, but we were making electronic products. But always electronic products that people would love and would empower them to do what they wanted, which could be making beautiful pictures or beautiful music or just playing music, you know?
Yeah. So it's, well, excellent. Yeah. The next video.
そのジョブズ氏が世界に躍り出るきっかけになったのが、1984年に発表した新製品、マッキントッシュ。
I'm Steve Jobs from Apple Computer. We're very glad to be here tonight.
この社運をかけた大事な場面、モニターに映し出されたのが、美しい髪を櫛で溶かす官能的な女性の絵。これは、ジョブズ氏自身が日本で購入した新版画でした。新版画とは、江戸時代の浮世絵の技術を使って大正から昭和にかけて制作された版画で、大胆な構図と近代的な色使いが特徴となっています。なぜジョブズ氏は大事な発表の場で新版画を示したのか。実は発表会の前の年、ジョブズ氏は東京銀座にある老舗の画廊を訪れていました。この時接客した松岡春夫さんです。まだ若いジョブズはヨレヨレの T シャツにジーンズ姿だったといいます。
当時まだカラー印刷が非常に高いので、アップルのマークが入ったカラー名刺を出されたので、ちょっとびっくりした覚えがあります。
この時、ジョブズ氏は2点の新版画を購入しました。一つは桜の背景に富士山が描かれた作品。もう一つは美人画の朝女神。起きたての女性の生めかしさがよく描かれている作品です。こちらは当時の価格で70万円と高額なものでした。松岡さんはジョブズ氏の絵の選び方に目を見張ったといいます。
画集が頭に入って、好みもきちっと整理されているんじゃないかと思うほど、感性が鋭くて、素早く決定される方だなと。その辺はびっくりしました。
ジョブズ氏が生涯にわたって新版画を大切にしていたことを物語る一枚の写真があります。自伝に掲載された自宅でくつろぐジョブズ氏の写真。2004年に撮影されたものですが、よく見ると、部屋の壁にかけられていたのは、松岡さんから初めて購入した朝女神でした。ジョブズ氏がなぜ新版画にのめり込んでいったのか、取材を進めると、原点ともいえる新たな事実が見えてきました。ビル・フェルナンデスさんです。ジョブズ氏とは10代からの親友でした。
So, this is the Shinhanga by Hasui Kawase that was his wedding gift, very thoughtful gift. Because I also love Shinhanga.
中高生の時、フェルナンデスさんの家でよく過ごしていたというジョブズ氏。その時のことを母親はよく覚えていました。
He and his friend would go in there and experiment with their electronics.
日本美術を学んだ母親の影響で何枚もの新版画で埋め尽くされていた部屋。この環境がその後のジョブズ氏に影響を与えたといいます。
He liked that a lot. It became very attractive to him. You could see his love of simplicity and elegance throughout his life, like in the products that, he developed at Apple.
スティーブはですね、余計なものを全部省いていってシンプルにするっていうところがすごく求めていたところなんですね。新版画でも極力突き詰めていってシンプルに表現することによって本質が見えてくるところ、そこに多分共通点を見出したんではないかなと思いますね。
余計なものを見極めてそぎ落とすことで本質を見つける。何か私たちもさまざまな課題に立ち向かうときに参考になるアプローチ方法だと改めて感じます。
今このコロナ禍でスティーブ・ジョブズが健在だったらどんな言葉で何を語るのか聞いてみたかったなと。
So, the point is aesthetics to scrape off unnecessary things. Aesthetics to scrape off the unnecessary things. That's the point, I think. That you said, simple and elegance. And you have many collections of Shinhanga. Please introduce your Shinhanga, please.
Okay. I'll show you 4 examples.
Oh.
Here is one. Here is one that Steve Jobs saw hanging on the wall in our house, because I have a copy and my mom has a copy. And here is another of my favorites. Yeah, let's see here. And I'll show you 2 more. Yeah. And I like this one because it shows the rain using little strips of mica that have been vertically made striations that glisten in the light, to show it raining. So anyways, those are examples of some of the kinds of Shinhanga that Steve saw when he came to my house. And Hayashi-san, do you care to turn on your video?
Okay. Please turn on Hayashi-san.
Yeah.
Okay, so look at the Hayashi-san's house, and look at the garden and the and so forth. The wood, the light, the natural setting, and so forth. I'll stop talking. So you say something, Hayashi-san, so everyone's screen will update.
So I'm actually joining you from Kida-san's house. Kida-san lives in Machiya in Kyoto. A beautiful Machiya, which is very traditional setting. You can see the tokonoma.
So thank you, the tokonoma. That's the kind of environment that my mother tried to recreate as much as she could using American suburban furniture in an American suburban house. She tried to create that feeling, that spirit, and then hung the Shinhanga on the walls. And you saw in the video the picture of my mother sitting on the couch with the natural wood wall behind her and the Shinhanga in the middle. So when Steve Jobs came to our house, he saw a very different environment than the kind of house and the decor that you would normally see in a suburban house in America. And so that had a great influence on him, shaping his sense of aesthetics. Now, over the years, he had many additional influences that developed his sense of aesthetics. But I kind of think that his love for simplicity and elegance started in my house. I think so. Thank you, Hayashi-san.
Thank you.
Talk to you later.
So, in article, your grandfather was a researcher of Japanese Shinhanga. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, he's the person who, I think I have a photo of him here. He's the person who collected all the Shinhanga that eventually was inherited by my mother and that we hung in the house. So here's the person who was the source of all the Shinhanga that was in our house and that Steve Jobs was exposed to early on. Yeah, that's my grandfather.
Your grandfather, your mother and your father graduated from Stanford University?
Yes.
So I was surprised that the west coast of the United States, there are so many researchers of Japan or Japanese culture. Is that right?
Yes.
And your mother collector of Shinhanga. Okay, I see.
Yes.
So next. Well, Shinhanga, Japanese culture, simplicity and elegance, I think, which produce tremendous power and produce tremendous economic value. Jobs found it and evidenced it. I think so. How do you think about this?
Well, what we just saw was part of what shaped the nature of the products that Apple produced. The iPod, the iPad, the iPhone, the Apple II, and so forth, the Macintosh, where simplicity, elegance, beauty, something that you wanted to use, something that you wanted to be part of your environment, were all things that we put into our products that many other companies didn't. Other companies were interested in technology. We have the fastest or the most powerful or the most RAM or the most something. And the products were very technical and very industrial, if you will, and did not have like the friendliness and the sense of beauty and elegance that makes you happy to handle it and to see it and so forth. It would impress you with how technologically powerful it is, but not necessarily in how lovely it was and how much you wanted it to be part of your life, how much you wanted to interact with it.
So it's attractive of the Apple products, and which make big money. Don't think so?
Well, ultimately, yes. Ultimately, we did a good job, and people liked it.
That's nice. Okay.
You know. Now you notice that you know, all the businesses bought Microsoft products and Microsoft servers and so forth. Okay, all the individuals bought Apple products like iPods and iPhones and Macintoshes. Yeah.
So attractiveness is the key point of the Apple products. I think so. So then I'd like to ask you all audiences. On the other hand, we Japanese haven't cherished Japanese culture. Rather, we Japanese have destroyed Japanese culture, haven't we? Then we Japanese continue to decline economically and culturally. Don't you think so? Then the last theme, the main theme. Why was Jobs able to change the world? And I think this is related to Japanese culture. What do Jobs think and do if he is alive now? Let's think about it. I think Jobs left a hint for us. He repeated it in 2 keynotes at the end of his life. The intersection of technology and liberal arts. He said that it's in Apple's DNA that technology alone is not enough. It's technology married with liberal arts, married with the humanities, that yields us the results that make our hearts sing.
Woo. So I've said this before, I thought it was worth repeating. It's in Apple's DNA that technology alone is not enough. That it's technology married with liberal arts, married with the humanities, that yields us the result that makes our hearts sing. And nowhere is that more true than in these post-PC devices. And a lot of folks in this tablet market are rushing in and they're looking at this as the next PC. The hardware and the software are done by different companies, and they're talking about speeds and feeds just like they did with PCs. And our experience in every bone in our body says that that is not the right approach to this. That these are post-PC devices that need to be even easier to use than a PC, that need to be even more intuitive than a PC, and where the software and the hardware and the applications need to intertwine in an even more seamless way than they do on a PC. And we think we're on the right track with this. We think we have the right architecture, not just in silicon, but in the organization to build these kinds of products. And so I think we stand a pretty good chance of being pretty competitive in this market. And I hope that what you've seen today gives you a good feel for that. Now, I'd like to take just a minute at the end. I'd like to ask all the people that worked on iPad 2, from engineering to ops to marketing to finance from Apple, if you guys could just stand up so we could give you a round of applause. And as always, I'd also like to thank everyone's families, because they support us, let us do what we love to do. So thank you very much to our extended families out there who make it possible for us to work our tails off making these great products for you. So thanks for coming this morning. We've got a great hands-on area, and I'd really encourage you, go get your hands on one of these things. You won't believe it. Thank you very much.
I think this is very impressive stage. Please give me your comments on this stage.
Well, it's much like I said. In that video, he talks about PCs and after PCs. He says the people who develop PCs are trying to build better PCs, more powerful PCs, and put them into little rectangular blocks like tablets and things, but they're still PCs. Whereas Apple is all about building things that empower people to do what they want, to make their life better, to become part of their life, something that enhances your life. Products with soul, for example. Okay. So you have to go beyond the thinking that, well, a PC lets me file things, so let me build a better filer, a faster filer, more storage. Okay, but what's after that? What's after that is playing music or sharing photos or, you know, other things that you can actually use in your life to make your life better.
Yes.
I mean, why does everyone wear a watch?
Yeah.
You know, when you leave your home or your office, you leave your computer on your desk.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you take with you? You take your belt, your shoes, and your watch, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Why do you always wear your watch? Why don't you leave it behind? Because it's part of your life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So maybe the answer is the intersection of technology and relevance.
Or building products with soul.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or with kimochi.
気持ち、大事気持ちだし。